Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, featuring stories from r/Ripestories on Reddit, our own subreddit. If you have any interesting stories to share, please go to r/Ripestories on Reddit to share your own story, and there's a good chance that I might read it in a video. Without any further ado, let's dive right into the stories. And the first one was posted by user thefoxtrot86 on our own subreddit r/Ripestories. It is titled, "The Crows came back for revenge and then left us with the fallout for a year." This happened over a decade ago. My mother went through a period where she just plain hated crows. I mean, she hated them so much that she actually ordered me to shoot them with my BB gun any chance I could. It is an air pump gun, so it can do some damage. I was reluctant at first, but back then I was sadly under my mom's thumb quite a bit, so I did as she wanted. I would go outside with the gun primed with 4 BBs in the barrel to make a sort of shotgun blast and would shoot at any low-flying crows. And I am certain I hit a few because I saw them jerk in the air. And no, I never had fun doing this. I hated every single shot I made. But I was such a pushover to my mother's demands, I didn't stop until... After about a week of this, I woke up in the morning to a sound that was like someone was walking on my roof. My roof is metal and quite old, so for all I knew, I was gonna walk outside to see a large man with a white beard and red outfit that would be uncharacteristically out of season by about 6 months walking up there. Instead, I was greeted by the sight of over 20 crows all pecking away seemingly in unison at the spot right above my bedroom. I live in an outbuilding. When I called out to the birds, they all looked at me like the devil had caught them and scattered like the sort of frenzy you would see in a cartoon with feathers left behind. They did not come back, and my mom was happy for it until the hawks came. At the time we had pet ducks and they like to breed and have little ducklings following them around. And those little ducklings were targeted by hawks because they were easy to grab. And they would somehow snatch 2 or 3 at a time sometimes. And during that year and the following winter, the hawks' attacks were far worse than they had actually been before. That is when I remembered seeing 2 crows beating the crap out of a hawk in the air by attacking it over and over until it was well out of their airspace. I just figured the hawk had targeted their nest or something, but months into the rampant hawk attacks it dawned on me that all the crows that had been nesting nearby were fighting off the hawks. And I scared away the crows. I told my mom that I was certain the crows had been keeping the hawks away. She was dismissive of my theory and simply told me to keep an eye out. And to of course shoot at both crows and hawks with my BB gun. But I finally laid down the law and told her I would never shoot at a crow again unless I absolutely had to. And that my shooting them was the reason why we were losing so many ducklings, so I wasn't gonna target crows anymore. Of course, my mother tried to debate me on this, and she even tried to tell me to shoot at the crows several more times, but I adamantly refused. It wasn't until the following summer that crows finally frequently returned to our property. And like I had vowed, I never shot at one again, and magically most of the hawk attacks stopped when the crows returned. And I made sure my mother knew it. She never tried to make me shoot crows again after that, nor has she tried to shoot at them herself, even though my parents are not lacking in firearms. Time went on, we ended up no longer keeping ducks as pets, and all is well with the crows. I look back on it as a lesson learned to respect nature that much more, because karma comes for everyone sooner or later. Well guys, and I think we all know ever since we have read the 2 crow stories a few days before, if you are not nice to crows, karma will definitely bite you in the butt. Either way, if you have watched until here, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even post some star emojis in the comments if you want to support the channel. Thank you so much in advance for your help, it really means a lot to me. And the next one is the title story, and it is titled, "She's too pretty to be autistic." A story coming from my mother. Hello, I'm new here and I have a story coming straight from my mother. I asked her if I could tell it, so please be free to share anywhere else. However, for privacy reasons, I will use code names. The context is the following. This takes place when I was 3 years old, so all of the information being told is coming from my mother, as a baby like me back then could not remember other people's stuff. And the cast is the following: Mama, my mother, me, Fishy, and Woof, the woman who thought I was too pretty to have autism. On to the story. When I was around 2, my parents found out I had autism and ADHD when I went to a doctor's visit. Like the loving parents they were, they still loved me for the beautiful mess I was. However, the 2000s were not exactly the best for someone having a mental disability. Ableists were running amok, as I put it, and Karens were the most frequent as ever. Mama was walking with me in a stroller at a park near my old house, which was a townhouse. I was munching down on some goldfish crackers, this will be important later, when a woman approached my mother. Woof.
Oh, what a cute little tot.
She looks up to my mother.
What's her name?
Mama. OP, she's my sweet little angel. She looks down to me. Right, OP? Me, I hold up a goldfish cracker. Fishy. My mom cracks a smile as I giggle, but one way or another something touched me. It could have been a bug or the leather of the stroller, but my little mind began to panic. I started to stim, which back then was me tugging or grooming my hair. Woof notices this and gasps.
What is going on with her?
My mom pauses and then notices what is going on. She bends down to my level and strokes my scalp, which calmed me down immediately. I then happily go back to eating my crackers. However, it seemed like Woof had not gotten her answer yet. Woof, looking up to my mother, a worried look on her face.
Is she okay? Why was she tugging at her hair?
Mama. Oh, she was just stimming. It happens when she feels uncomfortable or upset. Woof is confused about what my mother said, but then it clicks for her. Woof, her face looks grim.
Oh, I see. She has autism. I'm so sorry.
My mom is confused as well, but more importantly, she is a tad ticked off. Mama, I only recently found out, about a year ago. She was diagnosed at local doctor's office by local doctor. Woof's face turns from pity to disbelief when my mother said that. Woof.
Local doctor doesn't have any medical experience. I brought my daughter to him, telling him about her broken leg from falling off of her scooter, and he just said it was a scrape. You shouldn't be taking anything from him.
Mama pauses. I have seen the local doctor before, and he's the best doctor I've visited yet. He's the only one willing to see OP. Not many doctors around here are open to those with autism.
Woof, but she doesn't have autism.
My mother grips onto the stroller handles, wondering how this lady thinks she is the professional doctor around here. Mama, what was that?
Woof, your daughter doesn't have autism. She looks nothing like someone with autism. Plus, autistic people cannot talk, yet she can. The doctor probably told you she had autism just to mess with you.
Mama, she grips the handles harder. What are you implying?
You don't get what I'm saying? I'm saying OP is too pretty to have autism. And there's another thing I can show you that she doesn't have autism.
She kneels down to my level.
What is 1 + 1?
Me. 2. Woof, she stands back up.
See, she cannot have autism. Most autistic people are stupid.
My mom is physically shaking at this point. However, before she could retaliate against all the BS Woof said, I spoke up. Mean shark. Woof looking down to me.
What?
Me. Mean shark, eat salt. I then proceed to throw the goldfish crackers at this lady. The woman is either disgusted or annoyed as she glares my mother in the eye as she tries to stop me from throwing my snack. Woof.
How could you raise your child like that? What little girl throws food at adults?
Me. Because the dinosaurs died. Woof, now confused again.
What?
Me. But one lives. It eats salt. The woman is enraged by my answer, but she only stomps away. After all, she wouldn't want a bad reputation for punching a toddler, would she? Finally, my mom says something to her as she is stalking off. Mama. Never, and I mean never, assume someone is too pretty to have autism. End of the story. And you know guys, interesting fact by the way, just last night I saw a talk show in German TV about the topic of minimum wage for people with disability and specifically people with Down syndrome. And you know, in Germany we have these types of, I guess they call them disability workshops or something like that, and essentially people with a disability can work in these workshops and they get a lot of help there and even earn some money. However, what most people don't know is that the people with disability who work there often work up to 36 hours per week, aka 5 days a week like any normal person, and they usually make around €1.50 per hour, which is around $1.78, which is obviously outrageous to say the least in the year 2021. However, it would have probably been already outrageous maybe in 1990 or something. So yeah, pretty sad state of affairs if you ask me, in one of the richest countries in the world. And the next one is also from r/Ripestories and was posted by user PizzaNerd1 and it is titled "Steal My Tips, I Rock Your World." I got a doozy of a story for all of you today, one that took place that happened to me 2 years ago before the C virus, with some extra fallout coming up recently. I posted this story in another subreddit, but after seeing Ripe's other videos on YouTube, I thought of sharing this here too. I apologize that it is a bit long and not sure if it would fall under petty revenge, pro-revenge or nuclear revenge. A bit of backstory: I worked in a high-end pizza restaurant as a busboy and a server, not a waiter. This restaurant also had kitchen workers making pizzas, delivery drivers who did prep and made deliveries, and bar girls who took your order when you came in, served you drinks at the bar that you placed your order at before you went sat down at your seats. At the bar there are 2 big tip jars that were usually jam-packed on busy nights. Now, you would think the money in that jar would go to everyone, right? Wrong. Company policy back then was that half the money in the tip jars went to the main bar girl for that shift, while the other half went to the main kitchen worker for the shift. Not a penny went to any of the servers. This meant that the closing bar and kitchen people would get an extra $40 or $50 in tips on top of their actual paycheck. Any time servers got tips was when customers left it on the table, but of course meant any of the servers could snatch it up if they buzzed the table. I could write some crazy stories about that one day, and customers leaving a tip at the table was incredibly rare. Anywho, let's meet the cast: me, the overlord of pizza, nice customer NC, bar girl BG, good manager GM, and jerk boss JB, who will show up later. Petty revenge start. One weekend I was scheduled to work the opening server shift, which I didn't mind. Good manager was substituting as the manager for the weekend, while jerk boss was away for a family vacation. The restaurant was fairly busy Saturday, with about a quarter of the tables taken, including a nice family of 4 that included nice customer sitting in the back of the restaurant. I put on my best customer service skills and serve all tables as best as I can. As the people trickle out, nice customer and her family were leaving and they wanted to give me a tip, but at the time could not find me. I was taking a phone order at the time, but as I walked from the back room that was beside the bar, nice customer found me by accident. Me, have a great day, ma'am. NC, thank you, same with you. I couldn't find you to give you a tip, so I gave it to the nice lady, points at BG, at the bar to give it to you. I internally groaned as I watched the NC walk out the door. BG did not have the typical Karen haircut, but she had the "I'm better than you and I know it" attitude. After NC walks out the door, I go straight to BG, all while GM is standing nearby drinking water beside her. Me, excuse me BG, could I get that tip NC gave you? BG,
oh that, I will count you out later.
Me, I would really like it now. Tips for servers are rare. BG,
later.
Before I can get another word in, the phone rings and she instantly answers it. First time I have seen her actually take one, and to avoid talking to me. I look past her and see GM lightly jerk his head as if to say, "Go buzz NC's table." I groan and proceed to get back to work, but all that day and into the dinner shift I approach BG about the tips I was owed. She would say every time that
she would count me out later.
But every time I asked her and she responded the same way, I made it a point that GM was standing well within earshot. I forgot how many times I asked her for my money, but it was at least 6 times and she would always give the same response. I was let off for the evening and asked one last time before walking out the door. BG told me that she was
very busy with customers.
I let it slide and leave for the night. The next day I am working the same shift, same manager and same bar girl. Right after clocking in and minutes before customers come into the restaurant, I walk up to the empty bar with BG and GM behind it. BG is on her cell phone texting while GM is standing nearby writing inventory in a binder when the following occurs. Me, hey BG, can I get my tips now? BG,
What tips?
the tips from last night. Remember that NC gave you money to give to me because she couldn't find me? BG,
Oh, you didn't make any.
sneering before turning back to her phone. Me, last night a customer gave you money that was meant for me and I would like it, holding my hand out beside her phone. Not looking up from her phone.
You didn't get any.
At this point GM closes the prep folder he's been writing and approaches. Excuse me, what is going on? BG,
He thinks I took his tips from yesterday.
me, I served a woman last night and she wanted to give me a tip but couldn't find me, so she gave the tip to her. As I point to BG. GM, I know all last night he was asking for his tips and you said that you would count him out later. BG,
He didn't get any tips.
GM, was it the lady in the back room? Me, yeah. I nod my head as I point to the table at the back of the restaurant. She was sitting there with her family. GM, well, I know for a fact she asked to give a tip to her server, but couldn't find him. So why didn't OP get his tips? BG,
She didn't get those tips because he doesn't deserve them.
GM, why is that? BG,
He didn't deserve them. I do. He's a server. I'm a bar girl. I am pretty. Damn it.
yes, she actually said that. GM, OP, go wash dishes or something. BG, let's go into the office. I walk into the dish area and smirk from ear to ear, thinking this was the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. Pro revenge starts. A few days later, JB had come back from his vacation and finds out what happened over the weekend. The man was notorious for writing get out of jail free cards to people if it was for the good of the company. This has led to some employees thinking since they were essential employees they could get away with stuff, they would certainly be written up or fired if it happened under a competent manager. The first day, Jerk Boss and I work together. He asks me to step into the office before I can begin my shift for the dinner shift. JB,
What happened last weekend?
I go into detail on how I served and see how they left the tip to BG for me because they couldn't find me, and how I asked multiple times for the tips I was owed and never got it, and how I confronted her when JB cut me off. JB,
I'm afraid I cannot excuse what you did.
me? What I did? What about what she did? You gonna excuse her for theft? JB,
She did nothing wrong. Half the tips go to her, while the other half went to the kitchen worker. You know the rules, OP.
me? Yes, I do know the rules. The rule states half the contents of the tip jars go to the main shift's bar girl and the other half go to the main shift's kitchen worker. But this customer handed the tip to bar girl and told her the tip was for me and bar girl kept it for herself. JB,
Either way, I'm not punishing BG, and that is final. Now go back to work or I will write you up.
I leave the office only to be met with the smug grin of BG standing behind the counter. I walk into the dish area where all the other servers were standing there loitering around. They all knew from how I was pestering BG on Saturday that I was supposed to get tips, and all of them were delighted when they heard GM had pulled BG into the office to lecture her. However, punishment for all employees at our restaurant was decided and ultimately handed out by JB. Me, I need to make a phone call. Cover me for a few minutes. All the servers nodded as they all guessed what I was about to do. I left the restaurant and went behind the dumpster out back and called GM. I told him he refused to punish BG and threatened to write me up. GM promised to check into everything. The fallout was great. The owner of the franchise got involved and reviewed everything. While I didn't get my tip, the manager now had to give the main server for the shift and the closing dishwasher a portion of the tip jar. It irritated bar girl so much that she wasn't making as much money anymore. She left the company about 3 months later, but of course not without being a royally sized Karen every night I worked with her. The surprising thing is where she went to work next. A bank, no joke. After that, Jerk Boss severely cut my hours so that a new server would get double the days and hours I got, and he rarely ever scheduled me to close. Also, when the minimum wage went up, he didn't think I deserved a raise despite working for the company for so long. I continued to work there despite this, since I had difficulty finding other employment, which is difficult since I have some bad knee, back and asthma problems. Eventually, Jerk Boss was offered a job at an auto shop which he was raving had better pay, shorter hours and was closer to home. Jerk Boss left the company and the new manager who took over is way nicer. All the toxic people who thought they were
essential employees
and benefited from the countless get out of jail free cards were upset that they couldn't get away with the BS they had fun doing when Jerk Boss was a manager anymore. They all trickled out of the company one by one and were all replaced by employees who were not only more polite but better at the job. Now you're all thinking, this must be where the story ends. Well, there's one last cherry on top. Just as the C virus entered our lives, the auto place Jerk Boss suddenly realized the auto shops wasn't as great as it was promised and soon began asking Good Manager if he could come back. I laughed when I heard this, since after Jerk Boss left the pizzeria, it is booming with profit and it is now a much nicer place to work. And you know guys, speaking about servers or anyone in the restaurant industry not getting tips, I am always reminded of one of the best episodes of the show Kitchen Nightmares by Gordon Ramsay. There was one episode featuring a crazy restaurant called Amy's Baking Company, and among a plethora of other issues, the owner also believed that the servers did not deserve any tips, and because he is one of the hardest working people at the restaurant, he takes the tips instead. Have you ever witnessed something like this in real life? The funniest part of that episode was when Gordon Ramsay actually told the customers what the guy was doing with the tips. They were like, "Wait, what? That is absolutely horrible." And basically right at that moment, the restaurant owner essentially wanted to kill Gordon Ramsay. I highly suggest everybody to at least check out the YouTube channel of Kitchen Nightmares on YouTube. I could literally watch the highlights on that channel all day long, even though I have seen every single video at least 4 or 5 times already. And guys, unfortunately, we have already reached the end of the video. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, and if you haven't already, please also go to patreon.com/ripeyoutube, where I upload exclusive Reddit videos starting at just $3 a month. This is a great way to support me in case you are interested, and the chance for me to become independent from YouTube revenue. Thank you so much for watching, please don't forget to subscribe and like the video, and I hope to see you again tomorrow.